I'm Susan. Welcome to Tea and Games. The tea today is Builders, a British breakfast blend. Yeah, see, caffeine symbol. I need caffeine this morning. And this is how much caffeine I'm drinking. Went down the wrong pipe. But I'm not starting this video over because I waited a while to make it. You may recall back a few videos back, I mentioned that I had kind of bought a stack of games, and we were now waiting for the games to be delivered. And one of them had been delivered, but the rest had not. The rest have come, and even more miraculously, we have played most of them now. So you'll get to actually not just say, this is what we got, but this is how good it is. First, I guess, we should do a quick look at the game that I've already looked at. This is kind of the game that started the whole let's buy a bunch of games thing. I was talking to a friend of mine about small publishers going out of business, games going out of print, the difficulty of even knowing if a game is going to be reprinted or not. Games just, it's like you put a game on your wish list and suddenly you notice the game has become a little bit scarce to find. And you're going like, ooh, gosh, should I get it? Is this like a temporary thing, or is this game going to be gone forever? So we were just kind of chatting about, you know, the kind of uncertainty in terms of things. And I mean, a lot of people just impulse buy games, but I generally don't. I look at a game, I put it on my list, I research it. It either goes off of my list or it moves up or down on the list. I actually have a literal list. It's on my phone, and it's got a little checklist thing, and I can just drag and drop things to reorder the list, or click things to move it off, or say that I've already gotten it, or delete it, or whatever. But this game is one that I wanted, and I thought about getting it for Christmas, and I didn't, and then it went out of print, like at the end of last year. So it's like, oops. But there still was just a little bit of supply out there, though the price was starting to edge up. And I thought, we were talking about, he's going like, I don't know if this is going to come back into print or not. You know, there's some of them that may, some of them may not, and there's no real way of knowing. So after just this whole discussion about the uncertainty of whether or not board games are going to stay in print, obviously some games that are really popular or very, very new are probably going to stay in print or get reprints or whatever, but you just can't know. And it's hard for the average person to have their pulse on the board game community to the extent that they know whether or not a game is going to be reprinted or not. So I went ahead and I got Project L, and I talk extensively about Project L because it was the first one of the games, the list of games that I ordered that came in. So I'll put a link to that video down below. But I have good news about Project L. It is going to be back in print. The same friend that I was having the discussion with got like an email newsletter thingy from the publisher, and Project L and Expansions is supposed to hit Kickstarter next month, April 2023. So those of you that did not get a chance to get it the first time around have another shot at it now. And I am pleased about that because we really love this game. We are having a lot of fun playing it. But yeah, after having that discussion with him, I just looked at my wish list, and games that were starting to look like they were going away, that I was seeing a lot fewer sources for buying them, they started inching up that wish list. So that by the time we had that discussion, I just looked at my wish list and I just scraped the top 5 games off the top of the list and ordered them. One was Project L. Another game that I was afraid was going to get away from me that I heard really good things about was Switch and Signal. Now you're thinking, well, I got Ticket to Ride, Actually, in my case, I've got multiple versions of Ticket to Ride because my husband really likes the game, and I like it too, but mostly I just like the 25th anniversary edition of Europe. That's my thing. That's my jam for Ticket to Ride. But my husband likes a bunch of other versions, so we have a lot of other versions too. So why do I need another train game? Well, this is not like other train games. I mean, it's really not like other train games. This is so cool. This is, first of all, the biggest difference right off the bat is this game is co-op. What you're trying to do is it's pick up and deliver. You've got to pick up your cubes, deliver them to port cities via train. You turn over cards which tell you which trains move and are deployed right at the beginning of your turn, but you also draw cards which give you switches, signals, and train movement. So that on your turn, after you've done the one card that's turned over that tells you to deploy or move certain things, then you have the chance to move signals, which give green lights for trains to go through cities or routes. They'll be like red signal things, and you have to replace them with green. And switches, which block off, like where train intersects, you do this thing where you switch the little pieces around so that trains either go through here or they go that way. And you got to do this without your trains hitting any stops, meaning there's no signal there and there should be, or hitting any switches, meaning that the route is blocked because the track goes off another direction, or without hitting another train. And as more trains come out and they're all going ever which ways delivering stuff, that gets trickier. Now, the game has two maps. It has a European map and a North American map. And the instructions, which, by the way, are pretty good, they tell you to do your first thing on the European map. And here's the reason why. On the European map, you must deliver 2 of 4 color goods, 4 different color goods, to one port city. And that makes it a lot more manageable. But on the North American side of the map, you've got to deliver 1 good of each color to 2 different port cities on opposite sides of the map. And you've got these train tracks crisscrossing every which ways. I'm looking at this. Which map is this? Oh, no, that's actually the European map. The small version is the American map there on the picture. But so you've got to do that, again, without hitting any stops, which should have green signals, without hitting any switches, without hitting any other trains. And there are penalties if you do hit stuff. There are time penalties. And if you take enough time hits, then you start pulling cards off of the deck, which also acts as a timer, the deck that you turn over at the beginning of each turn, not the draw deck. So it's tricky. It is the first game we played with the European cities. We came within 1 turn of losing. We won, but we came within 1 turn of losing. Then this past weekend, we did the North American map with the 2 cities, and oh man, was it hairy. And with everything going on, yes, we did have a train collide in Dallas before the end of the game. We did really well for most of the game, but after a certain point, it just gets, and you're looking at this and you're going like, okay, I need to move this here. I don't have any switch signals. I could discard 2 in order to play any card, but then, see, that's the thing. If you don't have the card you need, you can discard 2 of any card to play that. But then those cards that you discard, you might need later for something else. And you're going like, and he's going like, well, I've got signals. And I'm going like, yes, but that doesn't do me any good, because if that next card we turn over has the black train go, then the black train has to move before I can play any cards. It's going to hit something. So that means I have got to move something Although I suppose I could just route it off over here, but then he's going to be going way out of the way. I'm going to have to, then we'll have to run him around. So, and that's going to lose time. But the black train is the fastest train. And that's another thing. The trains don't all move at the same speed. Each train has its own die. The black train's die goes 1 to 5. The brown train's die goes 1 to 4. And the gray train is the slow train, as we call it. It goes 1 to 3. And let me tell you, the gray train almost killed us all on the European map. Because when we played this last game on the, not European map, the North American map, when we played this last game on the North American map, going to different cities, we got halfway through the game, and Robert is going, oh, there's no way we can win this. We don't have this and that, and we haven't even started picking up cubes over there, and it's like, and I'm going like, I don't know. I kind of think we can. I mean, if we can get that into there, then it's a short hop over there, and I mean, and I can always send that one over there. And I thought it was just barely possible that we might be able to win. But I have to admit, he's right. It really didn't look good halfway through the game. But we slogged on. We pressed on, and we just looked at that map, and we just worked every strategic angle we possibly could to make sure that everything was working and that we had the wiggle room that we needed and that we had trains going the best way that we could do. And we had to get the brown train out of here before the black train could come in, and we worked it. So we get close to the end of the game, and we're looking and we're going like, actually, I think we could win this. So then we start going like, okay, then this needs to go here. And once this goes here, he's got a straight shot in here, and this train will then be able to go in there, and that one will pick up here, and then the tough part's going to be that turnaround. That's where we may lose some time on that, but we worked it out. Took a bit, we worked it out. It was a real nail biter. We got down to the last turn. I mean, like, talk about the last card. And we were all out of time. Basically, if we busted right here on that turn, then that last card would go away and game over. That was it. We would have no more choices. We literally had one turn. It would get... On my turn, I would be able to bring the last train in, but the problem was that the gray train had to move, and it was a gray train that had just been deployed. And we deployed a gray train because gray trains are slow, and that means that if we get a gray train movement card, it's less likely to hit something because the max it can move is 3. But gray train had to move. So the last turn of the game, the very end of the game, where it was my turn and we needed to do the roll, we needed to make the gray train move, and then I could bring the last train into the port, but gray train had to move first, and that gray train, 3, he could only move 2 without hitting something, so we were literally one bad dice roll away from losing, but we rolled a 1. Gray train moves 1. I moved the last train into the port, and we won North America. But it was hard, and it was a real nail-biter. We won on both maps for the first 2 games we played. 1 game on each map, which you might think, oh man, this co-op game is way too easy, but it wasn't easy. I mean, we were just looking at that map, and we're going like, okay, if you do this, then I can do that. And he's going like, yeah, but you've got to move this here before that. And I'm going like, oh, I forgot all about that. Because if the black trains move, all the black trains have to move. For the train movement cards that you turn over at the very beginning, the deployment and train movement cards, not the ones in your hand. The ones in your hand, you get to choose what goes. But at the beginning of every turn, you turn over a card that gives you kind of a default movement or deployment or both. So those are the ones that can kind of get you, although a lot of times they're good because They give you movement if you're all out of movement cards. They get more trains on the board, which allow you to pick up more goods. You know, I mean, it can cut either way is what I'm saying. Which brings me to one of the things I love about this game that makes it different from most co-op games. I mean, if you've played co-op games and you're tired of that whole thing where it's your turn and you've got to turn over a card that's going to screw you over, this is a game for you. Because while it's true, those cards that you turn over at the beginning of your turn might not work out well for you, although if you really plan ahead and are very careful, most of the time you'll be fine. And this game takes planning. You got to plan for worst case contingencies. But the thing is, this game has no punitive cards. A lot of co-op games that you play, at some point on your turn, you have got to basically turn over a makes things much worse card. You know, you got more diseases in Pandemic. You got more monsters attacking in Horrified. You got islands sinking in Forbidden Island. But in this game, there's no deck of cards that's specifically designed to mess with you on every turn. Like I said, there's a card you turn over at the beginning of your turn, which has train deployment, bringing out a new train, or train movement, or both. And in a lot of cases, you can choose. Sometimes it will tell you what color train to use, but in a lot of cases for those cards, you can choose what train you bring out and what train you move. Now, a roll of the dice will determine where the deployed train is stationed. But there's no bad cards per se. There's no cards that's specifically designed to make things worse for you. I mean, it's kind of bad enough. You've got all these trains and the tracks and you're moving things around and you're going like, well, okay, I'm out of signal cards now. But I've got these two switches. So if I move that switch, then I wouldn't need, then he could come out that way and I wouldn't need the signal. You know, I mean, you got to think it through, but it is possible to win this, and the game isn't actively trying to hurt you. It's just the nature of the game is inherently difficult. And if it's not difficult for you, there are modifications that you can make that basically make the game more difficult, like removing time tokens or removing the number of cards from the deployment train movement deck that you turn over at the beginning of your turn, because that's the timer. I mean, every co-op game kind of has some way of basically timing out the game. And when that very thin deck is gone, then the game ends, no matter where you are. But we have had a huge amount of fun playing this. I mean, it's thinky and it's fun. And it's really, really enjoyable. It's actually more pleasant than a lot of co-op games because you may turn over cards that just really don't work for you at that particular time, but the game is not actively trying to destroy you. And I like that. It makes the game feel less harsh to play, even though you may get into situations where you're just completely messed up. And it's like, well, there's no way out of this. We're going to hit something, you know. We're either going to hit the train or we're going to hit the signal or we're going to hit the switch. And that happens, you know, but it's really a game about good planning and planning ahead and basically doing the very, very best you have with your resources and working together. So I highly recommend Switch and Signal. It is difficult to find. This one, I ordered it from Amazon, but it was shipped from England. So good luck finding a North American supplier. Those of you that are watching that are on the other side of the pond, get this thing. It's good. But yeah, that was like, this game was one of those, like, as soon as we played it, we knew I will love this game forever kind of thing. Okay, so let's see. I've covered that. I mentioned Fox in the Forest in the previous video where I mentioned Project L. Fox in the Forest is not hard to find. It's not in danger of going out of print as far as I know. It's a pretty well-known game. This is a 2-player trick-taking game. I played, and I mentioned it in the previous video because when I ordered the game before the game came in, I started playing it on the app, and playing the app is so addictive. So very, very addictive. And yes, you can learn the game from the app. You totally can. But this game was recommended by Michelle and Billie. Whoa. Flinging things around. Over at Second Star to the left. And because they like trick-taking games. And they primarily play at 2 players. We played some trick-taking games with friends for a while after college. But that was a long time ago, and I wasn't sure I really remembered, like, how things clicked. Like, I felt like I needed a refresher before I tackled any heavier trick-taking games. This is a small game. I think that you could probably teach somebody the basics of trick-taking using this game, even though this isn't something like a straight trick-taking game like Hearts or Spades or something. Because the thing is, it's only 2 players, so that makes what's going on a lot less complex. One thing, also, there are some trick-taking games where you have to bid on your tricks. There's no bidding here. There's some where you have to predict the exact number of tricks that you're going to take, which can be pretty intimidating for a beginner. And that isn't here, although you do need to predict a range. Or not predict a range, you need to shoot for a range. To score after each round, you score a certain number of points, and you have little point tokens here, 6, 3, and the ever-popular 1. I say ever-popular 1 because you can get 1s for 7s. Here is your scoring reference card here. Can you read that? Is that in focus? Anyhow, if you get between 0 and 3 tricks, you will get 6 points, and you are described as humble. If you get 7 to 9 tricks, you also get 6 points, and you are described as victorious. But if you get in that 4, 5, or 6 range, you're just defeated. You lose, and you get 1, 2, and 3 points, respectively. So even though you're defeated, quote unquote, you can still pick up a few points off of it. Though, of course, if you're defeated and you're getting 1, 2, or 3 points, then that means your opponent is getting 6 points off the 0 to 3, so that means they're still getting more. Now, if you get 10 to 13 tricks, you're described as greedy, and you get 0 points. Greedy gets 0. So there is an aspect of this game where you're trying to get your opponent to take too many tricks. You're either trying to get more tricks than they are, if you both have 4 tricks, say over 3. If you can keep yourself under 3 and get them to take all the rest of the tricks, then you get 6 points, they get none. But if you get 4 tricks, you're over that 3 thing, then if they get a whole bunch more tricks, if they get more tricks, then they win and you lose. So, I mean, it's kind of like you got to sometimes know when to pivot in this game. Like, it's like, well, I'm not going to be able to go under them, so now I've got to shift my strategy to go over. And this game does allow you to pivot a bit because some of the cards have special abilities. There are 3 suits in this card. There are moons, there are keys, and there are, where are they? And there are bells, which we often refer to as Daleks. Is it just me, or does bells look an awful lot like Daleks? So anyhow, in a game we were playing this weekend, it's like every round, the trump card that was turned over at the beginning of the round was a bell card or a Dalek card. And then Robert's going like, why are we getting Daleks every time? And I say, well, Daleks trump everything. So I was talking about the special abilities. The odd numbered cards have special abilities. They have text which tell you so you don't have to remember all this stuff. Ones, if you play this, you're going to pretty much lose the trick. Although you could win the trick with a 1 if the 1 is trump and somebody throws something else at you. But if you lose this trick then, and you lost it playing a 1, then you will lead the next trick. Whereas otherwise, typically, the high card would lead. The person who won the trick would lead. Ones, threes. Remember I said pivot and manipulate things to work cards to your advantage. Threes are the ubiquitous fox, not ubiquitous, that's not the right word, epimonious fox of Fox in the Forest. I think that's the right word. Suddenly I'm not sure. It's the fox. When you play this, you may exchange the decree card with a card from your hand. Decree card is the trump card. Play a 3, and you can play the 3 and then take a card out of your hand and swap it with the decree, which is whatever card. After the cards are dealt, you turn over 1 card. That's the trump suit. So 3, 5s. 5s are another ones that let you do stuff. When you play this, 5 is the woodcutter. When you play this, draw 1 card, then discard 1 card to the bottom of the deck face down. So 5 will let you ditch cards that are not good. Well, first you draw a card. And about half the time I end up discarding the card that I drew because it's either way too high for what I'm trying to do or way too low for what I'm trying to do. But sometimes you will indeed use these 5s to make your hand better, just like you can use these 3s to change that trump suit. 7s, that's when I mentioned everybody's favorite, the 1 cards. 7s are treasures. The winner of the trick receives 1 point for each 7 in the trick. And those 1s are very nice to have. They can sometimes make a difference. 9s. When determining the winner of a trick with only 1 9, treat the 9 as if it were a trump suit. Now, if there's 2 9s, all bets are off. I mean, it's like if it's 2 9s, then it's like it's the trump suit, or it's like you're throwing a non-matching card or whatever. But if it's only 1 9, then this 9 sort of magically becomes the 9 of trumps. And that's also very, very handy. And 11. 11, you might think, well, if you're trying to go under, 11 is not a great card to have. But in some ways, 9 is more powerful because it becomes trump. But if you lead, now you can just play an 11, and an 11 is just an 11 if you're following someone. But if you're leading with the 11, then your opponent must either play the 1 of that suit or the highest number they have in that suit. So if you play an 11, you can find out what the highest thing they have is. Although, if after that, they play a 5 at some point after that, then they may have had a chance to change what is the highest card in that suit. And of course, if they're changing out the trump card, then you see what the swap is. You know that they have just picked up a 7 that was trump, and they have now replaced it with a 10 of keys or something. So there are ways of getting information. This is a lot of fun. We like it a lot. It is very tricky. I think it would be a good way to teach somebody trick-taking because it's only 2 players. The special rules for the odd cards are written right out there on the cards. You don't have to bid on anything. You don't have to hit an exact number of tricks. You just got to make the tricks that are in that scoring reference card, which I think I just shuffled into the deck, or did I? No, I didn't. Okay. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's a nifty little trick-taking game. If, like me, you haven't played trick-taking games in a while and you've noticed that trick-taking games are kind of having a moment now in the board gaming community, then this is a good way to brush up. If you don't want to get the card game, don't have a partner that you could regularly practice trick-taking with, the Fox in the Forest app. It's good. Okay, now we are moving on. Getting down to a couple of the last 2 games that came in. Dive. Okay. I got this game not because I thought it was going to go out of print, but because I don't know. Nobody ever talks about this game. So I have no idea if this guy, I don't think this game is hugely popular. I hear nobody talking about it. There's not a great amount of buzz. It is from 1 to 4 players. It does have a solo mode. The solo mode looks a little tricky. I think it could be challenging. Those of you who like challenging solo games. It says it plays in about 30 minutes. Honestly, I think 30 minutes is kind of long. Although maybe for a 4-player game. Because here's the thing. This has got a lot of simultaneous action. This shows you what a 4-player setup looks like. At least for the first phase of the game. It doesn't have a real huge footprint, although it looks that way here because of the screens, but a lot of the times the screens go away. You just need to be able to not have people see what you're programming, because this is a programming game. It's the only game with a pre-programmed mechanic that we've ever played. But what you do is you have your dive board, and you lay down tokens, air bubble tokens, trying to predict. First, there's 2 things you got to try to do here. You got to predict shark or no shark on the different levels of these translucent sheets as you go down the board. And the second thing is, you see these different numbers on here. The numbers are basically their bids. Like you get bonuses, movement bonuses for sea turtles of 2 different types and manta rays. So if there are red or green sea turtles or manta rays on a particular level, and you predict that there will be manta rays or sea turtles like on that level, then you can double up your bids, like have shark and then also have another token on there that's a non-shark token, so that you've covered it for a shark on that level. But you're trying to predict that. And when I say the translucent sheets, and by the way, this has a really well-organized insert. All I removed here just now was the book, which is an excellent rule book. I mean, I actually got confused looking at some videos on this, but the rule book just lays it out perfectly. Okay, and here on one side, you have multiple language setup. But the back side is white, and that is important because it's helpful to be able to lay the white sheet down and put the translucent sheets over it. This is your scoring thing. It's laying right here on top. It's got a fitted thing. Look at how nice this insert looks. And this is where you move your little diver meeple. I don't know if I'm supposed to keep this foam thingy in here, but it seems vaguely protective, so I did. Here are your bubbles. You saw that little row here. Those are the bubble tokens. This deck up here is for the solo game. And here is the pond that you're diving into. It's beautiful. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous. And look, here is one of those sharks that you, as a diver, need to look out for. We also sometimes have some big megafauna like eel, although actually the eel is probably in the foreground here rather than, and these can be turned any direction, and they need to be shuffled before every game. Also, this is interesting. Not only does this have a shark on it, but, oh yes, here we go. This is a good example. This has, it has a shark, it has a green sea turtle, and look, it's got a hole, which, because you are looking down through these things, this over here, because you are looking down through the levels, and you're trying to predict what level the shark is on, what level sea turtles may be on, and you're programming your board accordingly. Whoever has the highest number for non-shark sides of the tokens. They're the ones that get the sea turtles and the manta ray. That's why I say it's kind of a bidding thing. But because some of these have bubbles, on them, holes. Can you see the holes? You can definitely see holes in here against the white. It screws with the perception. So, I mean, you may be thinking, okay, that's clearly on the third level, but actually it might not be because of the hole. So you may think that two sharks are on the same level, and they're not. A hammerhead shark. Yeah, we got about 3 different shark silhouettes here. We also have beautiful, majestic whales. We've got squids. Oh, let me see if I can find the whale. I see the whale. The whale is near the top. I can't tell what level the whale is on. Look at this. Ah, isn't that wonderful? It's just a beautiful game to play. And here is your octopus. Yeah. But it's tricky looking down through the levels. And some of it is depth perception, but a lot of it is just guessing, you know. And you can also use the light from your phone, like slide it underneath this, because see, this is on a standee here. You can slide your phone underneath and illuminate it from the bottom if you think that will help you. In some cases, it does make the lower levels show up a little bit better, but I'm kind of split decision here as to whether or not it actually makes things show up a little bit better, but as to whether or not it makes it easier to tell what level things are on. I'm trying to get these back in here. I'm not so sure. We played the game. It is very, 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 very light. I mean, it's kind of hard in a way because you're looking down and you really can't tell sometimes what level things are on. So that is hard, but in terms of being a strategic game, this game is really not very strategic. It's just not strategy at all. But it's light and it's fun and it's cool and breezy and summery and swimmy. There's only one downside to this game. I mean, some of you may consider that being light and non-strategic, very family weight and fun and beachy might be a downside for some people, but for me, the only downside for this, and this is something that I haven't seen anybody mention, but you should know, these tiles here, these tiles stink. They don't right now, but when I first opened the box, the chemical stench coming out of that box nearly choked me. It was bad. It was very, very, very bad. It was unbreathable. It made the air in the room unbreathable. I mean, I can't ever remember smelling a chemical stink that strong before. It was horrible. So what I did is I spread all the tiles out and let them air out for a week before I boxed it back up again. And then when we unboxed it to play a few days later, the smell was barely detectable at all. But this is something you should know. There are some people that are extremely sensitive to chemicals on, I don't even know what these, plastic acetate, I don't know what they're made of. These sheets, there are some people that are extremely sensitive to outgassed chemicals. If you are one of these persons, do not get this game. Or get like a secondhand copy that's had years to air out. Although this game is relatively new, so it's not going to have like a decade to air out. But just be aware of that and be prepared that, well, first of all, when you get the game, you're going to have to assemble this little doohickey. So don't expect to just drop it out of the box, sit down and play, because you've got to assemble the doohickey and then you've got to air out the sheets. So you're going to need to do a little bit of prep work on this. I basically assembled the doohickey, put everything into its nifty little places, and you can see, when I was talking about the good insert here, well, let me finish up about the stink. Let everything air out. I did it for about a week. It may have been 6 days. 6 or 7 days should be enough to get the chemical levels down to a not hardly noticeable level, and you should be fine. But if you are sensitive to outgassing, just be very careful with this game. Get somebody else to handle it and air the things out, that kind of thing. Okay, I mentioned the great insert. Let's get back to the good stuff about the game. Now, you saw how it looked from the top when I turned it up. Well, now that we have lifted this piece out, this is what you have in the insert here. You have, well, these holes here are where the legs of that thing go. Here are the screens, which will unfold. In the first part of the game, when you're doing the programming, you set up the screens so nobody can see what your bids are for certain things. And these are the diver boards that you are putting your air bubbles on to do the programming. We have got, I think, 2 males and 2 females, although one of the males has really long hair. So, could possibly go either way. I don't know. I didn't look that closely. Not looking that closely at the anatomy on the board. Jeez. And then, underneath here, you can see these are companions. And these companions are for a variant on the game, which make the game a little bit more strategic. You get more stuff. You can do stuff to your neighbors and some of them, and you like hiding certain things so that, and making them not score points. And so the companions will add a little bit more strategic and combative elements to what is otherwise a fairly peaceful game. And so those are your companions. The seashells here, their only purpose is to lay out in front of your place there at the table where the screen is, so that people remember what color you are. And then you've got your little diver meeples in kind of a very bright chartreuse and teal, pink, white. And there is a black diver that I believe you use for the solo game, which this is the deck for the solo game here. So this, I'm so impressed with this insert. This insert is really nice and very, very, very well organized. If I can remember how I put these things in here. There we go. And the screens. And this in here. So we've played, of the 5 games that I ordered when I just scraped the top 5 games off my wish list, 2 that I thought were getting hard to find, possibly, you know, out of print, like Project L and Switch and Signal, because I thought those might just go away forever because it was really hard to find them. Dive, which nobody ever talks about, and it's a really lightweight game, and I just like it. It's charming. It's beautiful. It's summery, and that's why I got it. I got it because I thought it just looked like a cool summer game, and the artwork is beautiful, just beautiful. So I just, oh, I left out a couple of things. Well, I'll put them in later. So we played 4 of the 5 games that I ordered when I did my, let's just take the top off the list. We played both sides of the match of Switch and Signal. We played Project L a whole bunch of times. We played Fox in the Forest a bunch of times. We played Dive twice yesterday. That's 4 out of the 5. That only leaves Tenpenny Parks. And this is, I don't think, in any danger of going out of print because it seems to be relatively popular, and it came out fairly recently, I think last year. Yeah, last year, I think. There are a number of games that have fun park, theme park kind of themes, and I've looked at them, but as soon as I saw this, the artwork just grabbed me. I mean, look at this. Artwork is by Vincent Dutrait or Dutoit. Not sure how to say that, but you know his artwork from a whole bunch of other things. But I just love the artwork for this game. And I thought a fun park themed game would also be a fun game to have for, well, for any time of the year, but also a kind of a summer kind of game, a game that sort of mimics fun and vacations and amusement parks and entertainments. And you've got polyominoes here like Mammoth Valley and Nautical Turmoil and Minecart Mayhem and a Labyrinth, and can't even read all of these. There's a sci-fi themed one in here somewhere. Ooh, yeah, there's the little alien head. And the interesting thing about the polyomino placement for this is that you have to place them corner to corner rather than them all having to be snugged up against each other, perfectly fitting. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and that's going to cause us to have to rewire our brain a little bit for the way we think about polyominoes. And they've got, another thing I really liked about this is, you know, with most polyomino games, you've got the board, and you're trying to fill this board, and it gets all squashed, but you can sprawl with this thing because you're putting them point to point. They don't have to be up against each other, and you can make your board bigger on either side, and you can just keep adding on. So I thought that was kind of neat and cool. I like that. And, ooh, I'm not even pulling out the game board here, which is on the very bottom. First, cards. Show you the artwork. Dino Adventure. Ooh, Kraken Whirl. Some of these cards are upside down. Oh, what's this? Most Awesome. Interesting. Ooh, Ad Astra, To the Stars. Yeah, but I love the artwork. It's got the theme park thing going, and it's got kind of a, not like a fair theme park, but a theme park that has different themes like space and nautical and fantasy and Wild West. So it's like there's like, you can have different areas of the theme park. And the centerpiece for the board is this magnificent carousel, which you have to put together and which is easy to put together. But I'm going to go ahead here, since this video is already going way longer than I thought it would, and just dump everything out of the box and show you the game board. The game board ended up being not as big as I thought. It's, I think, a little bit smaller than standard, slightly. And you see the big round spot here where the carousel goes. And the carousel is turned to point to these different features that you can go to. Worker placement. Yes, this is a worker placement game. But you've got tracks that you can move up here. The Thrill, Awe, and Joy tracks. Thrill, Awe, and Joy! I just think this is going to be a lot of fun. I have watched playthrough videos for it and some how to play videos. Rodney Smith over at Watch It Played has a how to play video for this. I will put a link to that down below if I remember. It seems like there's a bunch of stuff I said. I will put a link down below. Anyhow, I've just spread all of this out. This was a small haul, but now that I've kind of got it all spread out here, it goes all over the table. I've had a great time telling you about the games that we have bought with our little mini haul here of 5 games, which honestly, I'm calling this a small haul because for a lot of board gamers, it's like a haul is like 10 games or more. But 5 games, like just sitting down and ordering 5 games or buying 5 games at a whack is just, that's big. We usually just buy a game here or there. So this is kind of big for us, and we've played all but Tenpenny Parks, and we'll be getting to that soon, and when we do, I'll tell you all about it. Until then, I've had a good time talking to you. I hope you've had a good time listening to me talk about the games. And I'll see you next time around the table. Bye.